Hello there. What's going on, everybody? We are going to be talking about Star Wars Legion today, and we've got a special guest, Jay Shelanskey from the 5th Trooper. How you doing, Jay?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. If you guys aren't familiar with the 5th Trooper, it's an entire network. Tell us a little bit about what the 5th Trooper's been up to lately, and of course, we're going to talk about Stormtide. But before we get into Stormtide, what's been going on with you?
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know us, we started as a couple of podcasts, the Fifth Trooper podcast and Notorious Scoundrels, and we kind of grew that into, we like to do a lot of custom product for Legion, and it's a lot of stuff that we ourselves want to play with, and so we also have a blog that we have a stable of writers that write for us about Star Wars Legion as well, and so basically the Fifth Trooper. My whole goal is just anything that I want in the game, or like I'm like, oh hey, we need, wouldn't it be nice to have sidebars for your cards? Then we create it, and so it's just anything I want in the game.
No, and that's the best way to do it. I use a lot of your sidebars in a lot of my stuff. And the funny thing is, like, it wasn't even like a promotional thing. Like, my buddy Sean, who I played with, like, ordered some of your mats, and he got sidebars, and for whatever, I think he ordered 2 mats, so he got 4 sidebars. So he just left 2 at my house. So now I've got 2 of them just set up all the time. And we've actually reviewed. I know if they want to go to Crabbok.com, they have a reviews section. We've got like mats and things like that. We've actually looked at some of your mats. I use the silhouette, the little neon acrylic silhouettes too.
Oh, yeah.
Those are really cool. So a lot of cool stuff over there.
Yeah, I mean, it just basically comes down to me over here in the office, playing and going, oh man, I really wish we had this, and then I go, you know what, I'm just gonna make it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's been a long time too. You guys have been running strong for a couple of years now. Like, since Legion's first tournament, you guys had the big that first Gen Con, or was it Adepticon?
Adepticon.
Yeah.
We had that big streaming setup at Adepticon. Yeah, we've been it's three plus years now.
Gosh, feels like just yesterday, doesn't it?
I know. Yeah.
Really
does. And it's nice to see, guys like you and the Stabcast team and a bunch of us old OGs still in it. Living the dream. So
the longer you do it, you see a lot of people kind of start making content and then drop out and stuff, and it's nice to see the people kind of stand the test of time and be that recurring presence to kind of keep the community alive, especially in times like this, which is going to kind of be a nice segue into Stormtide, because like when the game first came out, we were getting new expansions every month, or every other month. It was a whole wave would be broken down into 3 months. That was actually their first year, every month new stuff. And now we're going to be like, are we getting something new this year? It's kind of what we're hoping for, and it's understandable, but to help people hold things over.
Supply chain. Right?
Oh,
like, even
absolutely.
if they do announce something, it's like, God knows when we're actually going to, around the world going to get it. So
I actually just got a Kickstarter update today from one of the things I was backing, and they got this email from the boat, and they're like, hey, so we had a container collapse situation. I'm like, what is a container collapse situation? And you come to find out, about 70 shipping containers fell off the boat into the ocean, and they're just gone. Now granted, this is out of almost like 15,000 containers, but still, that's scary. And that happens. So during this time, where we're now getting so little, you guys have a really cool product that we're going to talk about today called Stormtide. Now, I've had you on before. Some people are already familiar with this, but for those who aren't, tell us a little bit about what Stormtide started out as, and then we'll segue into what's coming next.
Yeah, and I mean, again, to go back to what I just said, like, all of this stuff spawns from things that I personally want in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And so, one day I was like, hey, wouldn't it be nice to have like a narrative campaign that maybe it's Legion, but it's also tying in a little bit of an RPG element, and that we can play and grow our characters. And so that's kind of where this came out of. And so what we did was we put together a monthly subscription box that's basically a narrative campaign that drives, the narrative, the story drives what we do in the game. And we use the Legion the Legion mechanics as our base.
Yeah.
And we encourage people to use, whatever minis or imagination that they want to use. We brought them into our own kind of world and universe, and so it's basically so you and your pal, like you and Sean, could get together and just every week can play through a narrative mission.
Mm-hmm.
And what we try to do is outside of the narrative, in each box we try to give you a bunch of cool stuff for your game too. You know, we're teamed up with Skullforge, so we're producing minis. We try to put minis in at least, so we break things into quarters, so 3 boxes, and we try to put minis into at least 2 of those boxes every quarter. So, you know, in the first we're 6 months in, going into our 7th month, and in the first 6 months we probably put let me see, if I think it was about 10 to 12 minis.
Wow.
in the boxes. That's part of your monthly subscription. You just got the minis. And then what we do in addition is we try to, like, you know, we put in tokens that represent, like, for instance, these last couple boxes have had monsters in them, right? You have to fight off monsters. And we'll put tokens in that represent the monsters on the table, but we also offer, like, STLs or actual, you know, resin models of the monsters that people could buy to, like, expand their game if they wanted to.
Cool, very cool. So, like, you know, and the thing is, you don't have to. It sounds kind of open ended, and you know, I think one of the words, you know, because I also do stuff with luxury play style to make tokens and stuff, and you always, you know, we always say it's compatible because you can really use it for anything. And I know I've done that before. I use something for a different game and, like, hey, this would be a good, you know, something for X-wing, a shield token for X-wing works really good on droidicas and things like that. And so you can take, you know, Warhammer minis and use them in here and all that stuff too.
Yeah, and vice versa, right? Like, I think a lot of the minis, you know, we put a couple. So when you start in the box one, when people started, they got 2 commander minis that represented these 2 ships that both showed up to this planet at the same time. And those minis could be used in anything. You know, if you know, Crabbok and I used to do a Star Wars RPG. You know, if you're doing an RPG at home, like, these minis can be used in that. They could be used in other games, and vice versa. If you have God, who did one of our fans did their army, and I think it was, like, the Phyrexians from Magic.
Oh yeah. Wow.
And so, like,
that's
they
taking
had
me
the
way
whole
back.
Army. Yeah. And so they had the Phyrexian Queen as their commander, and then all the minions and stuff. So we really encourage that and really love that. And it's really for you to take a game that you love, Legion, and, you know, either use the Legion product if you want, or, you know, bring in other minis and just use your imagination as to what you want your armies to be.
Well, that's one of the things I think that's so strong about Legion too, is the hobby aspect has really it's really grown, especially since they kind of made the switch to hard plastic too. You've seen a lot more of the different options available with characters and the terrain too. Like, you're every game you're playing, you're building your own board. Like, there's not a standard setup for this game, and so I think a lot of people that may have come over from other games like X-Wing or even board games have come into this and saying, wow, I am making my own world every single time. And so that really kind of caters to people who want to create their own story to go on their own world. So.
Yeah, and we really, you know, leaned into that hard, and part of that, like, RPG element that I was talking about before is if you had started with the first box, and you're going to be able to do this, and we could talk about this later, but in the future, but you have skill trees that we've developed for your commander. So if you want them to be, you know, a space monk with a laser sword, you can absolutely do that. Or if you want them to be a hero, or if you want them to be, like, more of like a special forces type, you know, commander, we allow for that through these skill trees and this point system that we have inside the game.
Very cool, very cool. So that's, I mean, it sounds nice, and it sounds like it's a lot of fun for, you know, everybody who's looking to get a recurring. You know, and I think you guys have had a lot of success with it. I mean, I see people talking about Stormtide all the time, and so that's kind of going to bring us into season 2. So tell us a little bit about. I mean, I have some questions for you with season 2. You know, I think there's kind of like an elephant in the room for people who've been following. If they don't know, you guys did have Mike was part of the team, and he's not anymore. And I feel like if we don't talk about it, there's going to be questions. So, so like, what's, you know, like, I guess, what's the impact of that, and how you know, how did that, you know, what can you really tell us about that that's relevant to season 2?
Sure. And I think that's a fair question. And, you know, for those of you who don't know, Mike was our lead developer on the game for Stormtide. But really, to kind of ease everybody's, and not to take anything away from Mike, but there's a number of us at the 5th Trooper, and Mike and I were the core kind of people on Stormtide, and we worked very closely together in all stages of the game. So even though Mike's departure is a kind of hurt us for a little bit, I think the transition is going to be smoother than probably most people would expect, just because it was myself and John Bushman and Mike, and a lot of us were working on this game, and so Mike had to go and do his own thing, and life things happen and people need to move on. And I know I've struggled with this, right? Like, especially if I love a game and one of the developers leaves, I have, we recently saw that in Legion, right? And
I think with all of the Star Wars games really have seen that. So I don't think that's going to be, a change from what we're all used to.
Right. And I know, and I struggle with that same thing too, especially if a product's been good and I loved what they were doing and I had respect for the developers. So, I totally get everybody questioning and wondering how it's going to go, but I can tell you right now that box 6, which we just released, was our first box where we developed it without Mike. And so, I think we've already kind of found our groove, and we're going to keep going and keep moving. And Mike was great and did a great job for us. It wasn't easy to transition from Mike, but I think we're making that transition pretty good. I think there's always bumps in the road, to be honest with everybody. And, there's stuff we had to figure out and plans that Mike had that, we had to shift a little bit so that we could accommodate for the change. But, overall, I think things are moving forward. And like I said, box 6 was the first box where we see that. And that's already been shipped out last week.
Okay, so box 6 is not season 2.
No.
When is season 2 looking to start, and what can you tell us about what that is going to bring?
Yeah, so just as like an overall primer, for season 1, basically there's these 2 ships, the Hurricane and the Inferno, and they are ordered to go to this planet that just showed up in the galaxy that nobody knows about. And there's these scientists on the planet. They were trying to figure out why this planet's here, what's going on. We call it Rogue Majoris is the planet. So season 1 is basically setting up everyone to our world, and both actually our world and metaphorically our world, and getting them to understand what they can expect in kind of our game style and what we're doing with the narration. And so moving into season 2, we're really looking to up the ante and take the core rules of Legion and expanding on that and making these different kind of game styles. And I'll give you a little exclusive here. One of the things we're looking to do in box 7, which is the first part of season 2, which is coming out here in February, is we're going to have like a heroes kind of mission. So instead of like a full 800 point or a 500 point, it's going to be a very special like heroes only mission that we're working on. And so we're really excited about that. And the really neat thing about season 2, and the reason I'm bringing it up is, it is a kind of linear narrative that we've been writing for the first 6 months. And so what you would have had to have done, like, let's say if you wanted to come into month 3 or 4, in order to get into it, you had to start at 1, right? Whether you did it through like a catch-up mechanism or just started your subscription a little bit later. So what we're doing with season 2 in February here, which is our box 7, is if you're a new player and you haven't even been part of Stormtide and this sounds really interesting to you, you could just jump in right at box 7 in season 2 here in February.
Nice.
We're gonna have like a little primer and like a cliff notes of what's happened so far to everybody, so you're not lost. But the nice thing is that this monthly subscription's a 2-player deal. So ideally, if you're getting into it for the first time, the person you're playing is getting into it for the first time. So it's not like you're behind at all as far as who you're playing with, right?
Okay. And you mentioned something about a catch-up thing. So if somebody gets into it and they say, hey, this is really cool, I want all the other stuff that's available also, are they going to be able to do that?
Yeah, so we basically have what we call our season 1, quarter 1, and quarter 2, and those are available on our website. So you can buy them in 3-box increments if you really love it and you do want to go through all 6 boxes. You do have that option, and you can absolutely do that. If you want to just jump into box 7 season 2 here coming in February, you could do that too. It's all up to you. And we really wanted to make it accessible for everybody and not have you have to break the bank in order to participate.
Right. Well, that's a great idea. Yeah, I think there's a lot of costs already with this game, so people are going to appreciate being able to have, a whole lot more gameplay without having to necessarily get everything, because that's just something that people are deterred from getting into, like a miniatures game 5 years into it, because like, wait, I'm going to have to buy all the rest for this army, and maybe not necessarily in this case.
Well, and the nice thing is too, so what we do is in every box there's what we call missions. There's 2 missions in every box, and what they come with is battlefield cards. So you get an objective, condition, and deployment card, plus all the tokens. Like, we have specialized tokens for those missions. Like, some of them are like there was one where you had to locate the scientists, so we have scientist tokens in there. These are all replayable. So if you have another friend who's not doing the narrative story with you of a Stormtide, and you guys want to do something different with your Legion game, well, you could just grab all the battlefield cards out of one of our boxes, and you could just go take those and play those. And so, we really try to focus on replayability, collection, and the story. Like, those are all the big kind of tenets of Stormtide.
Okay, got it. We have some other artwork that you have shared, so I'm going to ask you some questions about some of the art. But first thing I want to ask about also is, you kind of mentioned, but for one, it's compatibility with Legion, and also you mentioned like a heroes only mode. Has AMG tried to sue you for stealing the Crisis Protocol model? Yeah, right. No, like, what do you guys run into any problems of because I know that we talked about this earlier, and I'm on the same sheet of music as you are, but for people watching, I know there's somebody's gonna be like, wait, how can they make a product that's Legion? And like, well, it's it's not Legion, but like,
and so there's 2 things, which is funny, right? Because when Marvel Crisis Protocol came out, AMG and FFG were 2 completely different companies. So,
that's pretty funny.
So maybe they borrowed some stuff from somebody else. But anyways, so what we're doing really is, one, even though this is for a supplement for a Star Wars game, in our books we don't really talk about Star Wars in our books. That's up to your imagination. We're creating our own world that's a space opera.
Science fiction isn't copyrighted.
Science fiction, right? Space opera. And if you want to play with Star Wars characters, you're more than happy to. And then in addition, what we're doing is we're not trying to we're not taking anything away from Legion and like pretending this is a new game. It's a, like, I like the word you use, companion. It's like a companion or supplement, where it's like, hey, if you play Legion, here's some additional missions.
Right.
Really what it comes down to is battlefield cards, missions, and some cool minis and tokens that you get, right? And
I think having stuff like this also can promote the game too, because maybe I don't have any heavy vehicles, and all of a sudden here's a cool mission that's cool for vehicles. I'm like, well, you know what? Maybe I want to expand my Legion army now to be able to play some of these missions in a different way. So
that's a great point, because one of the things is on your ship, right? We ask that you have at least 1,600 points. Units on your ship. So really, I think we're encouraging people to buy more Legion, because we're saying, if Mr. Crabbok only has 800 points worth of Legion, well, now he's got to go get another 800 points in order to, be part of the narrative. So.
If only I only had 800 points for a faction.
I know. For most of us, that's not a problem.
Right. But I have too many points. I need like 6 more ships.
And I've seen this. I have seen this concern from the community, and my answer is, listen, I'm not trying to take anything away from it. I'm trying to add on to it and encourage people to play more. And for those of you that play, I think how you got to see it is, and how we saw it was, the people that watch Crabbok, the people that listen to our podcast, Scoundrels, or any of them, it's a very small percentage of the actual people who are buying this game. If you look at any of those numbers that came out, I think Legion was like the number 2 or number 3 minis game in the world.
Yeah, it's doing crazy. Marvel Crisis Protocol too. Like AMG's got like some of the hottest games on the planet in their catalog, and Yeah.
But when we're talking to people, even in the Facebook group or the Discord group, if you're part of those, it's a small fraction of who is out there.
Yeah.
And so what we're trying to do with this is encourage the kid and the dad who just stopped at the local shop and bought the core set to come in. And this is kind of this is a bad way to explain it, but this is a gateway drug, right? In order to get them over to
a gateway experience. There you go.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Gateway experience.
There are no drugs in the box, right?
Yeah,
Wait,
right.
Jay, is there cocaine in the box? Is that why you need it every month? No.
Yeah, only every third box. So you got to keep going.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? We're trying to create that gateway to show people how fun the game is, and hopefully that helps them connect to the wider community. And that's like a perfect example of that. That's why our community contact that we have is through the Legion Discord channel, right? We didn't create our own Discord. We didn't create our own section to talk to our community. What we're trying to do is encourage the growth of the Legion community, because overall that's just better for everyone, because the more people who play this game, the more people who get into competitive or even just casual nights at their local store, the more Legion is going to succeed. And the more likely it'll be that whatever company just bought Asmodee isn't going to cancel the product line, because we want it to do it well, right? And so anything we can do to support that, that's what we're trying to do.
And you get more people playing, in stores, and you get weekly meetups and things like that. And that just encourages growth, and it encourages more people to come in and say, wow, look at these minis on the table. Hey, what game are you guys playing? Do you guys mind if I watch? That's what you're looking for. And that's what a lot of these games already do. So if you can multiply that, I think that's a good thing.
Great point real quick is we've had a bunch of stores reach out to us about doing events, store-based events for Stormtide, because what happens is they have these newer players who are like, oh, Star Wars, minis, I'm in. And then they see all us sweaty dudes playing competitive Legion, and it's not really their speed. You know what I mean? And so what we're trying to do is create that middle ground where they go, okay, I love Star Wars, I love these minis. Oh, what? They look like they're having a lot of fun. What are they doing? And they're like, oh, it's this story-based kind of RPG narrative mix that includes this. And hopefully that gets people excited about playing more often in their stores, which will then lead them to see that the competitive really isn't as sweaty as it looks from the outside, right?
Absolutely.
We have one of the best competitive communities in the world.
We have a great competitive community. I mean, it's really good, especially when you look at how many of the people came from, a lot of the 40K scene and came over. There's a very different, just a very different mentality that goes along with it. All right, so I have some questions on some of this artwork. So first off, we've got now this looks like some kind of robot. I don't want to say droid because some type of synthetic creature. So tell us about this guy or
this
they them.
Preview art for the next box. So basically, in the first box, the two commanders were very humanoid-like, right?
Right.
And so that's just because that's what we could do at the time. We were just starting. So I sent you this because in this new box, what we're doing is instead of just two commanders, we're actually putting 4 minis into this first box.
Okay.
And you can do commanders and you can do operatives with skill trees. And so this brobot, we'll call him, he is one of those minis that comes in the box, and you can choose what you want him to be. Do you want him to be an operative? Do you want him to be a commander? Do you just want him to be a leader for one of your units? We're very open to all of that, and then come up with your own mini for your commander, right? Which a lot of people have done. There's a lot of kit bashing out there of I think I saw someone was with had a stormtrooper with a lightsaber, and that was one of their commanders. And so
that's awesome.
We're very open to everything, and we're trying to give you guys the base tools. Hey, if you don't have a mini, you can use one of the ones we put in the box, and they can be whatever you want, whatever your imagination dictates.
I'm already getting vibes of maybe a separatist player saying, you know what, I want to actually swap this guy as one of my, as one of my T series instead of, have him be a droid leader or, put him into a unit, or something like that. So, and you have all that flexibility, and then you can take that other T series and swap him out for this guy or vice versa,
Yeah. And what we say is it's rule of cool for us.
Yeah.
And then Also, like, whatever, don't ask me. Like, we always get questions about, hey, can I pretend like my rebels have some old separatist droids in them and they're fighting with the rebels because they like refurbished them or something? And what we always say is, yeah, we're absolutely fine with that. Ask your opponent or your partner that you're playing with.
Right.
If they're cool with it, then yeah, let's do it. Like, let's see what happens.
That's a good point too, because since this isn't a tournament scene, this isn't a tournament game, this is a story based game.
Yeah.
So, if that's going to make the story better for you and your opponent, and everybody's on board with it, then you absolutely should.
Yeah, and that's absolutely right. And the other thing that I always have to come back to as well is, like, when we're building the mechanics and we're talking about the development of the game, at larger games like Legion or 40K or X-Wing or any of these larger games, you have to think about how the balance works across multiple people doing multiple things and all these tournaments, right? When we're thinking about it, we're really just worried about you and your partner at home. As long as it's balanced between you two, and you guys have the same access to the same stuff, and you can, maybe Crabbok, you wanna, in our world we call it the power. Maybe you want to have a power user, and they go down a certain skill tree, and you can have that power user be your commander, or you could have that power user be your operative, and you can build all kinds of different skills, and then build out your mini to make it look like that. We're very open to all of that, and it's really about you playing the game, having fun, and just between you and whoever you're playing, and making sure that you guys are having the best story that you could possibly be having on the table.
Awesome. We got one more image, and this is some of the creatures. This is some pretty groovy stuff going on over here. So tell us about this picture.
Yeah.
I'm actually gonna blow it up a little bit because.
So this picture is in the light because I had to take that for photography. But basically, in the storyline, all the lights go out on the planet, all the stars are gone, and it's just pitch black, and you have to survive. And there's about 4 to 5 missions of just monsters pouring out of the ground, and you and your opponent have to survive this. And so this is a picture of minis that we had an artist do the artwork, and then Skullforge Studios did all the sculpts for the 3D. And so the 2 little dog-looking ones, one of the boxes, we included 4 of those in the box, 2 for each player. And then all the other little squig-looking guys, that was a expansion pack that you could get for the game, or we also included tokens in the box. And then that big guy, he just came out in box 6. That's the big boy. That's the mega monster that we've been leading up to, that both teams are going to have to take on and try to defeat.
So now are you still it's still competitive? So this is like almost like a third threat on the board. So you're not just trying to. Oh wow! So that's a big change from what we normally see in Legion. You're not usually trying to fight off a Rancor at the same time as you're fighting your opponent, right?
Yeah. And so the real interesting thing, and what we did with some of the play style was this. We went back and forth. Crabbok, we know you did an AI system, right? During the lockdown, and so we played around with like an AI system, but what we really wanted was for it to still be a little competitive. So in these missions where these monsters, everyone but the big monster, but all the small monsters, when they're pouring out of the ground, your opponent actually has like almost a army of monsters that they're controlling, and including their army, and that army of monsters is going towards you, and then you have an army of monsters that you're throwing at your opponent while you're trying to fight them and fight each other all at the same time.
Oh, that's a great way to do it too. Yeah, because you're letting somebody else. I toyed around with like alternating control, like you control, and there's games that don't do that. But then it always becomes like, well, I'll just move it towards you, and then on my turn, I'll just move it back towards you, and it ends up not doing much. So giving each person their own independent control, that's a great idea. That's very cool. Very clever.
Yeah, and we basically, just locked it down where, like, if you're a red player, your red monsters, they don't interact with your minis. They only interact with the blue player minis, and so it's great fun. I mean, I know it probably sounds fake because it's our game, but I honestly love
Is it really fun, Jay, or are you just saying that?
I love it so much. Like, I've been honestly, I think everybody, right? I think little truth here, right? Real talk.
Hmm.
We all were kind of falling down during the pandemic and like
Yeah.
trying to connect to anything, right? And I think Legion was one of those things that was really hard to connect with because it's a very social game that is, hey, I want to go to my local store and play. And
Yeah.
so like everyone else, I was having trouble connecting. And once we started playing this and we're testing it and I'm playing it with friends, it's become fun for me again. And
Hmm.
it's really, and this is what I'm hoping it does for other players, and this goes back to us growing the game, is for me it's gotten that itch back in me, and so now I'm like
Right.
signed up for tournaments again, and I'm really excited about getting back out there and playing and seeing the game differently than I've ever seen it. And so I know I have
Nice.
to
Yeah.
say that because it's our game, but it is truly what I feel as
Well, there's
well.
to be fair, there's enough other people who've been playing this that are kind of echoing your sentiments. So I've seen a lot of positive talk about Stormtide as well. So for people who are interested, where can they check out Stormtide?
Yeah, so you could go to stormtide.thefifthtrooper.com. We have a whole website there. It's got everything explaining, what we're doing. You can get the subscription. We have multiple subscription models, whether you want to do it monthly, quarterly. We have a digital version. So whatever your speed is. And then one of the neat things, like if you haven't heard about Stormtide, one of the neat things that we do is at the end of every mission, there's a QR code that you scan. You go to a website and it gives you the rest of the story about what happened after the mission. But there's also this form you fill out letting us know what happened in your game. And that actually affects the world of Stormtide.
Hmm.
So in box 6 and then upcoming in season 2, we're going to see those effects of Stormtide on the world and in the universe. So, for instance, the two ships, the Hurricane and Inferno, if the Hurricane won in a certain area, you're going to know that coming into box 7 that, hey, the Hurricane has control over this area and they're going to get X, Y, and Z because of that. And so, what you do can affect the campaign, which is a really neat part of this as well.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I think that's kind of all of the questions that I've had, and I know you guys are playing some more Legion. I know that there's some more tournaments coming up. Is there
Yep.
any of those that you wanted to talk about? I know you just released another podcast episode talking about one coming up soon.
Yeah.
Uh,
So the two coming up is one is called Canto Bite,
mhm.
and that's happening. We're in upstate New York,
Okay.
in the Syracuse area, and that one's happening up here. And so I know they're still looking for players. So Canto Bite, check that out. And then the other big thing I want to talk about is Adepticon. We are going to have a booth at Adepticon.
Mhm.
We're going to be hanging around by the Legion stuff. We're going to be at Adepticon. So if you want to know more about Stormtide, or you want to actually see me open a box in front of you so you know what's in it, and you're
Okay.
going to Adepticon, come over to our booth and check it out, and we'll definitely walk you through it. And we're going to be doing demos of it at Adepticon too. So
All right. Well, fantastic. I think that kind of wraps it up. But of course, if there's any other questions that you guys have, let us know in the description below. Be sure to check out thefifthtrooper.com. And it's THE, the Fifth Trooper, with it's
yep.
spelled out, not no five in there. And you can get links to that as well as all the other merch and and the podcasts, and what Notorious Scoundrels is also linked on there
Yep.
as well. So if you want to get those. I know a lot of people don't necessarily do YouTube, so they don't want to do that. But if you want to do the
Yeah.
podcast stuff, it's you guys do it in both formats now too, right?
Yeah, we have audio and video, and then we have a blog that I think we're up to 6 writers now. So we have 6 different writers writing articles every week for you guys. So
You just keep
all
growing. Like the next time I have you on, it's going to be like, so we purchased a skyscraper in New York City, and what we're doing is we have the first 30 floors are Legion, 24/7. The next, then we live in the penthouse. Well, I live in the penthouse, but
well,
yeah.
yeah, and I think all of us want to do this stuff for a living,
Hmm.
right? And we've just been lucky enough, and the community has been supporting us to the point where we're getting really close, and we're able to bring people on and writers on and staff and really do cool stuff back for the community for supporting us, right? If
Right.
it wasn't for everybody that's listening or watching this right now, we wouldn't have any of this. And so really I owe it all to the community and guys like you, Crabbok, who are promoting us and helping us out. And I love this community in this game, and I think that's where all this comes from, is just my love for this and trying to keep it going and I don't know, give something back to the community that they enjoy as well.
Well, hopefully they continue to enjoy it, and hopefully, like Will Shix likes to say, hopefully in 20 years, the game is still going strong. Sometimes, like that. That'd be a very cool thing. Although that would be a hard time to go back in and pick up all the old stuff, because if you have 20 years,
Oh, God.
I think realistically, like that far into it, you're gonna have like, all right, here's the the 5th edition set. It's got new versions of everything. There'll be re-releases
We'll have
by
to
then.
update the rules, right? Because I mean, you've
man.
been doing this long enough that when people tell us, "Oh, hey, I went back and started with your first podcast," I'm like,
Oh, no.
oh, dude, don't listen to those. We didn't
Yeah.
know what we were talking about.
No,
back then."
no,
Like,
yeah, no. That is really like, I do the what to buy first things like I have to keep doing those like every year or two. Although right now it's gone slow. Like I looked back to like my what to buy first for Armada, and that was like back in like 2020, and I'm like, yeah, it's still current because there's nothing new, So yeah, like that's little by little you have to update those, but I guess that's maybe a good thing when they slow down stuff, as long as they could stop like changing the rules dramatically all the time. Every 5 years I think is probably fine, but don't do it like every 6 months.
Yeah, or like 40K like every a year.
Yeah, but at least with those you get to keep all of your stuff. Like when X-Wing went from that 2nd edition, and everybody had to buy the conversion kits, and now it turns out the conversion kits won't be tournament legal because they're only making the stuff that's released in 2nd edition tournament legal. So I'm like, all of that other stuff is now for casual or for extended play only.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's that's a whole different discussion for a different
that's
day.
a conversation for another podcast.
All right. All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap things up. Again, check the links in the description below. We'll put a link to stormtide.thefifthtrooper.com down there. You can check it out. Plus, you got all of my links down there too. If you're not already in my Discord or follow my social medias and all that other stuff, it's all going to be down there. It's all fun.
Follow
stuff.
him. Get in his Discord. What are you doing? If you're not in his Discord, you're a fool. That's from Jay Shelanskey.
Okay, that's gonna be the quote right down there. If you're, we'll see. All right, guys, that's gonna wrap things up for today's video. I want to thank the patrons for helping us out. Big thanks to Jay for joining us, and I guess that's gonna do it. I'd just like to leave you with these words of wisdom. Your socks go on your feet, not on your hands.